Okay, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose we should go around starting with Morgan. Um, who are you and how are you involved with the project?
My name's Morgan. I wrote the script for the show and then co-wrote lyrics with Jen.
Amazing. Ava?
Hello, I'm Eva Marie Blair, and I played Bea Stork in the world premiere cast of Dusk.
Amazing. And Daniel?
Hi, I'm Dan, and I wrote the music and co-wrote the lyrics with Morgan for Dusk.
So, in terms of sort of writing Dusk, then, how did you two come together then, Morgan and Daniel? How did you kind of connect?
We were connected through a mutual friend. So the project had kind of gotten started a little bit. It was never really intended to go as far as it has, but we had a good time with it. And it became apparent that we were going to need to find a composer pretty early on. And that stage, asked a friend who was like, wait a second, I know the perfect person.
Mm.
Kind of how we got rolling.
And suppose then, Daniel, what's the story about? What is Dusk?
So yeah, Dusk is kind of a retelling of the Twilight saga in a way. Obviously, it's a parody musical, so it's not as serious as people might expect, but we are kind of taking it. It's in the future. It takes place after the events of the Twilight series, and we are kind of seeing it as a retelling of the events through adult Bea, who, as you might know, as Bella Swan in the series, talking to her daughter Renesmee, or as we like to call her, just a bunch of different names that start with the letter R. And they're kind of going over the events of some of the books, some of the movies, and everything, and kind of just retelling the story.
Mm. And so why Twilight? Why was that the story that you stuck loosely to?
Well, I think it started purely as a joke. Like I would just
Mm.
joke about like, oh, I'm writing a Twilight musical, like with a and then it was overheard by someone who became our producer and
Mm.
some designer and set designer who was like, no, like let's you should do that. So it wasn't like I never set out. I was like, I need to someday do this. But I think like the material was kind of there. Like it's just so campy and ridiculous. It's not
Mm.
difficult to imagine characters like bursting out into song and dance. But then also I kind of grew up while that was popular and have had a chance to see how the fan base has kind of developed over the
Mm.
past 10 years or whatever. And noticing like younger people are getting back into Twilight, but having a completely different opinion of how the story
Mm.
should be interpreted, which I think is really cool and refreshing. So it's been cool to work on.
Mm. And I suppose bringing that new perspective yourself from the way you've changed the way you looked at the story is obviously agreed with what the audience had done. So, Ava, were you a fan of Twilight then growing up?
Oh yeah, I lived and breathed that. I was my teenage years were revolved around Twilight. I was obsessed.
So when
It
you
was that
saw,
and
so when you saw that your two passions were coming together, what was that sort of initial reaction like?
I was really excited because from my teenage years, I grew
Mm.
up watching Star Kid and a Harry Potter musical, and I always was like, how come no one's made a Twilight musical?
Mm.
I'd love to be a Twilight musical. So when I saw it on TikTok, which is how I was introduced to it, I was really excited first. At that point, I didn't know that they were going to cast it. I
Mm.
just saw it. Absolutely thrilled that someone had finally done it. I think I stalked their TikTok page that day.
And so then obviously from there you did get involved then. So what was it like, the audition process, the coming together with the other creatives that were already involved?
I think it was only a week after I started following them on TikTok, they announced that they were casting, and my initial thought was, oh, it's in the States, I won't be able to apply
Mm.
for that. I saw it was at Fringe, and I was like, I'd be doing a disservice to my younger self if I didn't apply for that.
Mm.
So the audition process was, I think they wanted a dramatic and a comedic monologue and a 16-bar cut of a song. Send that in. I think a few days, maybe a week later, I got a recall, which was, I think I got recalled for Bea, which is what I ended up getting, and that was her reprise. And then I got a Rosalind song, her section in Meet the Family. Sent that off, and I don't even know, maybe another week later, I think I got a final email saying that they wanted me in the cast, and that was
Wow.
incredible to get that email.
How do you feel taking on that? Because obviously with new musicals, it's all about, you're inventing a new character. Obviously, because this is based on something, you're kind of reinventing an old character, but doing it in a new sort of medium, a new format. How did that sort of bringing your experiences, but also new things to the character. How did that experience go for you?
Yeah, it was one of those experiences which kind of had two sides to the coin.
Mm.
On one hand, this very well-known character, and it can be a lot of pressure to kind of live up
Mm.
to that and give back that role. But on the other hand, because it is a parody, I don't know. I don't want to say that you take it less seriously, because you know you do. You want to do your best,
Mm.
but you can't get to have fun. And I spent ages rewatching Twilight and just being like, oh, Kristen Stewart does that expression. That is hilarious. Like,
Mm.
let's play around with that. And a lot of it was just play and just making it up as I go along and seeing how much I have with the character, which is
Mm.
great.
Oh, amazing! So obviously you mentioned Eva mentioned there the Fringe run. So how did that go? How was that experience getting ready for the Fringe and then putting the show on?
I don't think it's anything we could have prepared for. We were in such a fortunate position because there was kind of already an established online following with the show.
Hmm.
We rolled out the performances prior to opening, so then we were able to add more dates too and kind of bring in the afternoon crowd, which was cool because the audience responded differently different times of day. I mean, very rewarding, fulfilling. We learned a lot, so know how to do things differently going forward. But
Hmm.
it was
And obviously, we talked about then about new characters, but obviously bringing a new musical to stage is always a gamble because you don't know. Like, you know, you've still got the idea of it's an existing entity on its own, Twilight, but this is a brand new musical. So, Daniel, how was the moments just before the audience came in and just before the show was ready to start?
Oh gosh, those also varied pretty much every day. I mean, the cool thing about this is everybody involved was involved so much. So like
Hmm.
even the actors were helping with set pieces, and Morgan and I were helping. We were basically flyering before the show, kind of promoting, like we were
Hmm.
selling programs before. We were just trying to kind of market the show in any way we could. And then we're also dealing with time constraints with the venue that we were at,
Hmm.
different technical difficulties there because you only have a set amount of time to get into the theater to set up your show because this is a shared space that a lot of different
Hmm.
shows use. So I think we had like 15 or 20 minutes usually from the time that we got into the theater before the show had to start. So
Oh.
it was always really stressful, you know, trying to make sure everybody was in their places. There was always an issue that would happen like 5 minutes before the show started, but miraculously we were always able to get it going. And I
Hmm.
mean, the venue, all things considered, were really considerate with us because we were the last show of the night. So we
Hmm.
had a little bit more leeway than other shows, but it was a pretty stressful but very rewarding experience.
Yeah, and obviously, Ava, being from Britain, the Fringe is obviously our pinnacle of new theatre. So what was it like getting a chance to actually perform on such a renowned stage?
Oh, amazing. Do you know, it's always been on my performers bucket list to go to Fringe
Mm.
and to play an original musical. So when this came along, I was like, you know,
Mm.
two birds with one stone. It was amazing. And I'm
Oh,
so happy to say not only have I been to Fringe, but
you
my
did it.
first Fringe show was Dusk because it was such an incredible experience.
Oh, amazing. And what was the feedback like then from the show? The people who did see it, did you get much audience feedback and sort of a chance to discuss with people who watched it?
Yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, all of the stuff that we were kind of expecting to hear, we did hear.
Mm.
Um, it was mostly positive. We did get, of course, some mixed things, and again, like it was a lot of stuff that wasn't really in our control. You know, it's a hot venue and it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable seats, and our show was about 2 hours long with no intermission, so you kind of expect some
Yeah.
things to be said, and we're taking, of course, any of the feedback that we get with huge
Yeah.
consideration. We're going to make revisions and stuff, and the people who love the show loved it so much, and the feedback online has just been absolutely incredible. Everybody has just been so kind and supportive to us. So even the negative feedback is usually just always with something great
Yeah.
about the show too, and it's
Oh,
always nice to hear.
amazing. Did you get any people say that it wasn't what they expected? It wasn't the Twilight that they're so passionate about? Because obviously,
Morgan,
there's a
you've
fear
heard.
of if you're parodying something that someone might go, "Oh, I love this thing," and then you've changed something, and they did you get any sort of "It's not what I was expecting" sort of comments?
not so much at Fringe. We've gotten a couple like on Instagram and stuff
Yeah.
since. I think for the most part, I mean, we've stuck really close to
Hmm.
moments that people might recognize from the books. Some, I mean, from the movie, like
Yeah.
more and stuff too that people would recognize. But there were parts of the books that I think definitely like any of the readers would recognize.
Yeah.
The examples is Via wears the first time that Bella meets Edward and all of that, she has this outfit, just like this blue blouse and horrible long khaki skirt and stuff. People have made fun mercilessly on the internet for years. So Aoife had a rendition of that she, for the most part, people really appreciated things like that would come that were book specific. And then the stuff from the movie that would kind of like help tie everything together, I think they recognize as well. A lot of the newer, like unfamiliar content that we got to put kind of our own spin on was the relationship between which was our Renaissance main character, and the vampire version of Thea. And I think, I don't know, I mean, that was fun to explore, but as Stan said, we're working on revisions going forward. And I think one of the bigger changes is going to be how the narration is done. So, I don't know, we've taken everything that people have said into consideration, and hopefully we'll get some more feedback soon.
And obviously off that show then you recorded the album. So Ava, again, what was it like to record an album, just not just doing the show, but to then have your name to something till the end of time, essentially?
I think recording the album and listening to the album are very different experiences. Okay. I think we all found recording the album very stressful. We tried to do it ourselves and the gear just wasn't quite working, so they ended up going to Studio 42 and we had a very short pocket of time to record these songs, and a lot of the cast at that point were a little bit ill, so I think going into it we were absolutely nervous that it was going to sound awful because we'd only had 2-3 takes per song and we were ill. But listening back, I'm so proud of everyone. It's incredible to see your name on Spotify and to think that we did that in such a short bracket of time. I'm just so proud of everyone. It's come out really great.
And I suppose, what's the feedback been for the album then? What people said about the recording of it?
That's been really good too. I mean, again, I kind of have a little bit of a presence online with some previous works that I've done. So I have, since my name is connected to it on Spotify, the cool thing for me personally is a lot of people who didn't know that I was involved with the show being like, wait a second, you did this, and I'm like obsessed with this thing on its own too. And so kind of realizing that, and yeah, the feedback has been great on the album. We've had, like Eva said, a lot of limitations with recording it because when you're under the fringe, we were just not expecting to do a studio recording that way, and then we were able to. So all things considered, it's been a dream come true for me, and yeah, hearing the feedback has just been wonderful.
So you all did the recording all over, was it over here in the UK? So what was the process of getting everyone together like? Was that at the same time as the show, or did that come at a separate moment in time?
So that was during the fringe run.
Oh, right, okay. Wow.
I think, I mean, this whole process with the entire show has been expedited, but fringe was kind of like that. We had certain weeks, like there was a 2-show day, and then we had the album going on and just a bunch of stuff. Some people were working or doing other shows at the same time. It was a pretty
intense. But like, and obviously the feedback, like you said, has been fab. So obviously it was worth that, the stress and recording and getting out there, which is amazing. So what's next for the show then? Where do you see it in years to come then?
You want to start?
I could start, sure. Right now, I guess we haven't really formally announced it yet, but we'll announce it here. It'll be a little exclusive. The show is going to head to Adelaide Fringe in Australia, just digitally. We filmed a performance, and that's the pro shot that's out now, available online. So we are going to be premiering that at Adelaide Fringe Festival. We are looking into doing Edinburgh Fringe again next year. As I said, we're going to kind of be doing a revised format. And then we're also doing a little bit of a secret project that we can't really say too much now, is connected to the show, and it will kind of lead into this new version of the show that we're going to be doing.
And so it seems like lots going on, which is very exciting. So Morgan, where can people stay up to date with the show and see all these wonderful things happening?
We are on mostly TikTok and Instagram at Dusk_musical. And then I believe we're going to try to start doing more with threads, but
I don't use threads either, but but it'll be on there. There'll be a place to find it. So what advice then would you have, starting with Ava, advice for young performers and looking to get into the industry, what advice, what things would you like to share with them?
Don't give in. For a long time, I think after 2020 and the COVID fiasco, kind of gave up on performing, and this was kind of like my way to worm back into the industry, and it's been an incredible experience, and to work with Dan and Morgan's been great. So just don't give up, and if you are stuck in a little bit of a dip at the minute, just create experiences for yourself, get involved, contact people, and just keep going what you love.
Yeah, obviously there's the classic thing said to performers is there's so much competition or such a hard field to get into, so not giving up is obviously really important, because opportunities are scarce, but when they do come up, you need to take the most of them. So Morgan, what advice would you have for young creatives then looking into getting to write more the side of writing and putting shows together?
Yeah, I think I would say respect and value everyone. It's such a collaborative medium. I think sometimes people forget that when writing for theater, like that's going to end up involving a lot of people. It's not like writing a novel or be kind of a totally solo endeavor. And we learned through this, like, just how collaborative theater can be. We had people from 8 different countries involved with Fringe. So as you can imagine, like Zoom rehearsals, we had a huge spread of time zones. So just scheduling and stuff was difficult, but everyone's bringing such different perspective, whether that be like culturally or just like artistically. So we really got a chance to work with some incredible people that brought the show to life and kind of changed the way that maybe like I want to see the characters going forward. So it was really cool, but I think it's super important to always be coming from a place of respect and just being open-minded and listening. It makes it a lot easier to get
totally. And Daniel, what about your advice for people maybe more onto the writing side?
Yeah. So I have two kind of big things. They kind of play into each other, but I'd say the biggest one is to not be afraid to showcase your work online. I know it can be extremely scary, but of course this show would not have happened if we didn't take those risks to be like, oh, should we post this on TikTok? And then of course it goes viral, or do we really want the fans to see this? And then it does well. And then the other thing is just networking is so important in this industry. Again, I would not have gotten this opportunity without having that mutual friend that recommended me to Morgan. So just always work on those connections. Don't be afraid to say, to talk, to DM somebody like, hey, can you do this? Because the worst they can say is no. That's the whole mindset that I like to have with promoting things.
Oh, amazing. And my final question then, I'll go around the circle again, starting with Ava, is why should people listen to Dusk?
It's just so much fun. I think if you like musicals, if you like Twilight, there's going to be something that everyone enjoys in him. My boyfriend had never seen the Twilight series before I got into this, and he's like the #1 biggest fan of this. I've never seen him before. Just watch it. There will be something you enjoy in it, I promise.
And Morgan, why should people listen to Dusk?
I think it would be cool for people to listen now because we've mentioned revision, so things are evolving. Anyone who's been following from last year when we first started posting, doing the workshop, a lot had changed from then. So anyone who's been around for a long time has gotten to kind of be involved in the evolution of the show, and hopefully when it's in its final form, they can feel like they've been part of that community the entire time.
And Daniel?
Yeah, mine is kind of similar to what Morgan said. Like, you are a part of this show on its journey, and you're seeing how, if a show like this is doing well, maybe you have an idea that you want to try, and you can be like, okay, well, I saw that Dust did this, and if you follow along this, maybe you can learn from mistakes we've made or from successes we've had. And it is just such a fun show. Like, everybody involved is either a huge Twilight nerd, a huge theater nerd, or both. And so we all have a deep respect and love for the material, for what we are doing here. So it's a complete labor of love. We're not after money or anything. We're just after showcasing the crazy, stupid art that we made.
And I suppose that's really important. You said about being fans of both musicals and Twilight. It's not a parody in the sense that you are making fun of or attacking Twilight. This is just a musical version, a adaptation as such.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope it feels to people like a loving critique of the source material. I mean, it's definitely poking fun at the ridiculous themes, but I think like the way that they've aged the audience right now is saying like these are ridiculous things. We're not necessarily promoting that they
Yeah.
did act this way, but the retelling of kind of the events that took place, putting a new spin on how it's interpreted.
And I'm going to end the same way I started, just by saying thank you all so much and for sitting down and chatting to me. I'm so excited to give the album a listen. I know lots of people are as well. I'll put all the links in the description so people can just scroll down, click away, and check out all your stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out, and I will speak to you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.